Welcome to the Spawn Chunks, episode number 33 for Monday, April 1st, 2019. My name is Johnny, but you might know me as Pixel Riffs, and joining me, as always, is the fool himself, Joel Duggan. Hi, Joel.
I was just about to say that there's not going to be any April Fool's jokes here, but apparently
Not so much.
We did the one. Although, I will say straight up, there's not going to be any April Fool content in the show. I don't like April Fools. I didn't ask you about this before we started.
I'm not an April Fool's fan either. I've got a lot of people on my YouTube channel now saying like, why didn't you do an April Fool's video? I'm like, this is a tutorial series. It's not going to make any sense to have an April Fool's video to anybody watching after today.
Yeah.
So I just felt like there's no point in doing that, really.
No, and I just find them kind of stupid, and it to me it's just like, oh, it's the day that you can't believe anything that you read on the internet. Well, congratulations. That's the same as the other 364 days of the year.
Shots fired.
Yeah,
Shots
right.
fired.
I mean, these days, really, you got to do research all the time, right?
April 1st, fake news day.
We won't go down that rabbit hole at all.
Not so much.
Man. Well, in terms of real news, and one of the real things that focuses or happens, I guess, on April 1st, or the first of any month, really, this is the time of the month where Patreon is processing all of the payments from the Spawn Chunk members, the people that support this show. And I just wanted to take a minute, because we've seen a lot of growth over the last month, to thank everyone that has been supporting the show. We've seen a lot of people, even in the last week, coming into the Discord. It's so cool to watch our community welcome everybody in such a warm manner. The conversation just starts almost immediately. It's like, who are you? What do you do? Show me what you built. Like, give me the new person. Pounce.
Yes.
In a very, very friendly way. And I just think it's wonderful. And I wanted to take a minute, or we should take a minute. Sorry, not me. I just wanted to say thank you, because it's really, really cool that you guys support the show and allow us to put the time in to improve it. And as the show grows, you're just going to see more of that. It's like a snowball effect. The more of you that support, then the more time that Johnny and I can put in, and the better show that you guys get out. And it's proof in the pudding is happening now. And I'm super thankful for it. I just wanted to kind of throw that out at the top of the show.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's been great to develop stuff alongside our patrons, like the content engineer patrons who want to kind of shape the landscape of the show a little bit and kind of see what we can do to add to the show and improve the show moving forward. We've just started taking, polls for what topics to discuss on roundtable episodes.
Yes.
Stuff like that is constantly developing, and we're always workshopping new ideas and how we can get people more involved with the show. So, yeah, to those people who have been supporting us from the beginning, or even if you've just joined in the last week or so, it's wonderful to have you, and we look forward to spending a lot more time with you.
And it's not just the content engineers, but also the ore producers as well. I mean, there's that Smeltery channel has got a number of people in it, and a number of new people in it in the last little while too. So again, super, super good. So Johnny, what have you been up to in the last week of Minecraft?
Oh, a lot. A great deal. I made the mistake of drawing circles on stream. It did not go well. I'm rebuilding my nether hub from scratch, more or less. I decided that at first I decided to build a castle kind of thing in the nether, and I was going to have corridors going to all sorts of places. Of course, being the nether and being the best means to travel over long distances, I'm going 5,000 or so blocks in the overworld. It means a tunnel probably about 800 blocks long, which isn't really your average castle corridor. So I decided that seemed like a weird design to have, and it wasn't really going to be sustainable. So instead, I'm going for the big, area of circles in the nether. Basically, it's going to be like, the way I described it, it's going to be kind of like a honey stirrer, where it's like a series of discs kind of all centered around this central spindle, I guess. And yeah, there's going to be a series of circles, and of course the top circle is going to be the one above the nether roof, where I'm eventually going to build one of those big zombie pigman gold farms. But cool. Then each of the layers underneath that is going to be a circle with a different use. One of them is going to lead to all of the portals that are reasonably within walking distance. And then there's going to be a level for minecart travel. There's going to be a level for the nether-based farms. There's going to be one that has ice boat paths out to the far distant ones. There's probably going to be one that I can fly around as well. So it's going to be a really expansive project. And I started it by building a circle 137 blocks wide. And that was difficult.
Yeah.
And I did a couple of miscalculations, and anybody who's watched the stream or watched the VOD will know that we did a lot of back and forth trying to figure out where the center was and where the edges were supposed to be, and I drew a bunch of circles that didn't line up using plots.co.uk the entire time for like calculating which sections of the circle had to be a certain length. And yeah, some people in the chat occasionally were throwing me off and telling me that I was doing something wrong, and I wasn't. And there was this back and forth happening. But eventually, I got it locked in. Thankfully, otherwise I might have gone slightly mad. And I immediately left that project and went to play with turtles instead because it was more relaxing. So I actually got really into turtle breeding mechanics as well, though. Figured out like some good methods of hanging around the turtles. And if you break a turtle egg with Silk Touch, you can group it with another set of turtle eggs. If you do that with a turtle egg that's like hasn't hatched at all, but you group it with another one that's hatched a bunch but isn't completely like fully hatched into a turtle yet, then it actually takes on the same hatching level. So you can cheat it a little bit. If something has like 2 stages of hatching gone, you can take one that has no stages of hatching gone, put it with that one, and then you get more turtles more quickly.
Oh wow!
So I was kind of doing this thing where I was grouping together all of these less hatched turtle eggs with the more hatched turtle eggs, and fast tracking my way to getting a ton of turtle helmets out of that. So did a little bit of that. The last thing, the thing that you'll see in tomorrow's episode of the Survival Guide, is I've been chasing advancements a little bit. I ended up getting the advancement for, what was the one? The catching a ghast, like bringing a ghast to the overworld and killing it, was the last one I did on the video that's going to come out tomorrow. It was tough.
Oh yeah,
it's a lot of fun, but it was a lot of waiting around for a ghast to spawn in just the right area and then flailing at it with a fishing rod to try and drag it into a nether portal. But I got it, I did it. It was fun, and you'll see the results of that tomorrow.
Yeah, I want to try and do something like that in a build later on where I can transport ghasts into some towers and actually have them be like turrets.
Yeah,
so when people enter the world,
like they did on the they did that on Hermitcraft recently with their Civil War thing. That was a lot of fun.
I thought that was really, really fun. I mean, obviously tough. Like I have no disillusions about how tough that's going to be, but I think it could be. It's something that I've not done. I've not done a lot of like hostile mob transport. I've done friendly mob transport, but that's about it. With regards to the turtles, is the only thing really that you get from them is just the turtle helmet? Because I've not really delved into turtles because I've never seen the benefit. Like once I've got the right enchants on my helmet, do I need a turtle helmet?
You don't really. It's just one of those things that I wanted to tick off the list because I never really worked with them before. The turtle helmet does brew into a Turtle Master potion, which is the one thing that I think people skip over a lot of the time. They just see the turtle helmet as like an armor piece, and it is, but it's also a brewing ingredient. And I wanted to do a comprehensive guide to Minecraft brewing, which is what came out today.
Right.
And so, yeah, that was interesting. I've worn a turtle helmet since, but only because I just haven't got my diamond helmet out of my ender chest. Having played with ghasts for a while and taken a bunch of damage from that, I'm definitely switching back to my diamond helmet now. I see like the armor value and the armor toughness that diamond stuff has is so useful, and the turtle helmet is roughly equivalent in terms of strength to an iron helmet, but it shows when you're not wearing diamond the entire time. And the extra water breathing effect you get from wearing a turtle helmet isn't really useful to me.
No, yeah, when I looked at the time that it lasts and stuff, I was like, it doesn't really seem like it's that big of a deal. I think too. I mean, part of it obviously is because I play end game. Like once you're at end game, if turtle helmet, if you happen to be near turtles in early game, sure, like that probably is an excellent way to do some diving into shipwrecks and things like that. I feel like there needs to be something in between iron and diamond. For those of you that don't know or are maybe new to the show, I don't wear diamond armor because I think it looks dumb. The second fold to that is that I play on a server on normal. I would prefer to play on hard, but not every server member does. So I make the game a little bit harder for myself by wearing iron armor instead of diamond. I still use diamond tools. I'm not a glutton for punishment, but I wear iron armor. And I do in some cases feel that, oh gosh, I feel like I'm really underprepared for fighting this kind of stuff. You know, if you get more than a couple of bad guys at a time, zombie pigmen will own me if I get a couple in a fight if I'm not very good at it. So I kind of wonder if they could add something in between, diamond and iron to make that, because I feel like the leap is just astronomical, right?
See, this is what I want them to do with armor in the future. If they're changing up the smithing table and stuff, if it's going to be different to
Right.
make armor in that, I kind of want you to be able to like augment existing armor pieces with like say diamond shoulder pads for leather armor or something like that, so that you can have a little bit more control over it and customize it and get the increase in armor value while still retaining the customizability of something like leather where you can dye it different colors. I kind of want you to be
Yeah.
able to pad out certain types of armor with other materials. I don't think they're going to go into something that complex in the grand scheme of things, but stuff like Tinker's Construct has a system whereby you upgrade your tools with different materials. So, like if you have a pickaxe that you add diamonds to, then it increases in hardness and it increases in durability. But then if you add obsidian to it, it will last even longer. If you add, I think, like amber or something to it, then it gives you silk touch instead of having to rely on just getting the enchantments for that.
Right.
And so I feel like
that.
having a system like that, yeah, where you can build on your existing pieces of armor, might encourage a little bit more ownership of the stuff that you've got.
You
but
mentioned that
I-
last week with
Yeah.
Mythical Sausage too, about the axe that you had in the Harmony series, and how you felt like it was your axe, and how upset you would be if you lost it or died and it was destroyed. And
Yeah.
I like that idea, because I mean, I've died in lava recently, and I was no skin off my nose. I just went and grabbed a bunch of extra stuff because I've got 3 and 4 of everything, And if I had lost, it would make the game again not so much harder, but you'd be a lot more careful. If
Yeah, there'd be a definite impact to the whole thing.
yeah, because getting that stuff back would be complicated, and I like that kind of thing. I like the idea of constructing things out of what's happening in the game, and it doesn't seem like it's a stretch. Like that, adding obsidian to a pickaxe to make it one, maybe even look cooler. Imagine a black pickaxe; that would be kind of fun.
Yeah.
But then also, it sticks with the game. Obsidian is the hardest thing in the game, so outside of Bedrock, so it makes sense. Like it feels very Minecrafty, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of fits within the game's sort of existing, lore or rules or whatever you want to, the atmosphere of it and so forth. Anyway, what are you up to in Minecraft this week? What have you been doing?
I can check the box on the old fortified bridge in the South Meadows. I started it last weekend and I finished it all within a week. So check mark, it's done.
Nice.
Yeah, and I mean everything. And I did it all on stream. I did it was just a flat deck with a couple of like holding placements for pillars, but I did everything from building the pillars, the towers, the roofs, the decking, the landscaping, like so planting it so it makes it feel like it's part of the landscape, it's not just plunked down. Even blending the paths that approach and leave the bridge at both ends to make it feel like it's all completely together, and I'm really happy with it. It came out really well. I had some great input from the live chat. I've even built some retaining walls and try to think about what's happening around it. I do feel that the surrounding countryside is still feeling a little bit barren when it goes south of the meadows, but that's the area of Dartmouth Meadows that has not been developed. Like it's just a road. There's no builds really down that way, so it feels barren compared to the other side, which has got like a giant sugarcane field and a stone pathway, and you can see the inn in the distance. So like you look north and it feels very full, and you look south and the bridge stops, and that's kind of it. So
Yeah.
it needs something on the other side, but that's just like, well, that's what time will give us. As we build more, it'll look better in the future. But I really enjoyed it, and I enjoyed the challenge of it. I enjoyed the decision to build bigger, to build fatter, thicker. The towers are bigger than I normally would have done. The whole thing is just bigger than I normally would have done, and it really helped with giving it detail, identifying it from a distance. Like you can see the big towers. It's asymmetrical, so one end has got much larger towers than the other. And even the one end that's closest to, like, I guess the north side of it, those towers are also completely different. Like one is a small little castle-looking tower, and the other one has got like a pointy wooden roof on it. And then I added a gatehouse, and I was using the data pack that I've been working on with tables and chairs and putting some life and doing an interior in there. It's the first interior that I've done with access to that data pack, and trying to, push my interior design skills a little bit on a very weird shape, interior. Like it really is a bunch of challenges that I set out for myself that I feel like I accomplished. And there's something so satisfying about that in Minecraft, where you're going to set out to do something that you don't know how to do, whether it's a redstone farm, a build that you've never attempted, something at scale that you've never attempted, and then you get to the other side of it and you're happy with it. And it's a great feeling. And I have to have a small brag. I got a mythical sausage approval on Twitter, and I have proof. So
there you go.
I'm taking that to the bank. But yeah, so that's what I've been up to, and it was a lot of fun. And it has me itching to do more themed areas. Like I can't wait for 1.14 to drop so I can start to implement this thing on the Citadel where we go into different themed zones and do a medieval zone and do a sci-fi zone and just start to build things up over time and have everything look the same. Because we're starting to have a bit of that feel in the South Meadows and Dartmouth Meadows, and I really like it. It's an excellent. I'm trying to think about the word I'm looking for. Instead of a hodgepodge, it's a lot more. I guess not symmetrical. What's the word I'm looking for? Synergy. There's a lot more synergy with what's happening with the landscape, the builds, the paths. Everything just kind of feels the same world, and I'm really enjoying that aspect of it.
That's cool. It's always nice when it starts to come together like that, and you kind of get the sense of the vibe of the place. And it's something that I'm waiting for 1.14 mainly so that I can start putting in little details that I could do now, but 1.14 has something that's just right for it. Example number one, I was working on the potions lab that I used for basically the set for my potion brewing guide, and somebody was like, why don't you build a brewery in Founder's Forge, the big kind of medieval steampunk fantasy town I'm working on? And I was like, I could build a brewery, but wouldn't it be great to have barrels in there? And 1.14 has these really great barrels. And so I'm actually holding back on building some of that stuff because I know 1.14 has something perfect for it. But if I go ahead and complete it now, I'll forget all about it and I'll just use a log instead of a barrel. And we've been doing that for ages, but I feel like it would make so much more sense to introduce those features to the series and build that stuff alongside some of the newer blocks. So
absolutely. I felt that in doing the deck of the bridge, because I wanted a subtle bridge. I did not do full blocks. The deck of the bridge goes up in half steps, which is a way of doing steps I much prefer in Minecraft most of the time. And on the blocks that are half steps that you happen to be sitting on an even Y level, of course, you've got all kinds of different things for texture. You've got cracked, you've got cobble, you've got, smooth stone, etc. But when you get into the slabs, for my particular bridge, for the right colors, you've got two. You've got stone brick slab and you've got cobble slab. And you kind of have to go sparingly with the cobble because it's such a bright gray. And otherwise it just looks crazy. So in doing the retaining wall, I was talking with the chat and I was reminded that we have, mossy stone slabs and andesite slabs and smooth slabs and all these things that I would love to have had when doing the deck of the bridge. Now, thankfully, it's not a giant deck and there's only a couple sections. So when the time comes, I will absolutely be revisiting with the 1.14 blocks and making those changes. I'm finding that I'm doing that too. I'm finding I'm holding off on builds where I'm just like, I could do it now, but I really want to wait for the lanterns and, all the stuff that's coming in 1.14 that's going to really make that stuff more plausible.
Yeah, there might even be some stuff that opens up to you once the texture change finalizes as well, because I mean you're using the new textures now, but I'm finding that there's some stuff, the mossy cobble especially, I find that I wouldn't use it in certain areas because the green is too bright.
Oh right,
but the slightly different, more natural looking mossy cobble in the update is looking really nice now. So I'm interested to see how people sort of react to. Like if they would use andesite in a build after the texture update that they maybe wouldn't in the current default vanilla textures. But we should talk about the snapshot. Thinking of stuff that is coming up that is new, we have another snapshot this week. We had 19W13A and then we had 13B later on. I'm just going to read through the bullet points and then we've got a little bit of discussion that we can have about this stuff. So the highlights from 13A were the accessibility button now being available on the title screen. There's some improvements to accessibility and narration across the board. there are some raid tweaks, and the article on Minecraft.net goes into a huge amount of detail about exactly how raids work now. So that is worth reading in detail from the changelog page. And there were some minor bug fixes, including a fix to a problem that a lot of people notified me about when I said, hey, I want to build a bunch of the nether hub out of glass so it's spawn-proof. And everyone said, wait a minute, there was a thing that said in 1.14 glass is going to be spawnable now. Nope, there was a bug. It was fixed. Some changes have been happening to glass because glass is supposed to be able to, I think, like place redstone on it and conduct redstone power. It's still a transparent block, but it has some properties of a solid. Spawning is not one of those properties, thankfully, because, oh gosh, a glass floor in this place is going to look really good. Then when we get to 13b, we have a revamped trading UI now. The behavior that bells have, where you can ring the bell and villagers all run inside. It says reveals all nearby mobs that can appear in raids. So I'm not sure if it like highlights them for you. I wasn't entirely sure how that.
It does, yeah. It gives you, so if a raid happens and you're near a bell, you're going to want to ring it to send the villagers inside because they'll all run for the doors. Which is, I mean, that's the theory. They don't seem to really do it that well, but
okay.
Also not surprising considering villagers are kind of wonky anyway. But but yeah, so if you ring it a second time, the mob has to be within 32 blocks, and it gives them the same effect if you hit them with a spectral arrow, I think.
Right, so they get that glowing effect.
The white outline, yeah. So you can kind of see them through things. So if you're trying to figure out which direction they're coming from and you can't find it because there's too much stuff in the way, if you hit the bell, then you can see where they're coming from. Worth noting that you don't have to be within 32 blocks of the bell. The mob does, and that you can now hit the bell on the right axis with an arrow, which means you could be up high trying to figure out where they're coming from, shoot the arrow to highlight them, and then unload on them with your crossbow or your bow and arrow and try and stop them.
Not to mention you could potentially automate that with a redstone thing, having a dispenser fire the arrow instead of you, so that you don't have to rely on your own aim, but also you can just press a button to ring the bell. There you go. There are some options being made present here. This is exciting stuff.
Because the bell doesn't have any redstone interaction yet.
No, it doesn't seem to. 13b also had some bug fixes, and there is a long list these days of bugs that are being fixed because we're kind of in that phase of tidying stuff up before the full release of 1.13. 14, sorry. I'm looking at 13b in the show notes, and that's what's throwing me off. You also had something you wanted to bring to the news segment this week about the Sonic Ether's renewed shaders. Yeah,
so Edison the Fox in our Discord shared this article, and it's from PC Games, and it said, someone put ray tracing in Minecraft and it looks amazing. Well, the article quickly corrects itself by saying, okay, well, really it's path tracing, not ray tracing. They're similar, but different. And so it's kind of a viewer grab in the title of it. You can see the current download of shaders, SUSE Renewed version 1.0 at sonicether.com. And there are some links to some Twitter videos in the article. A bit of a language warning. The person using the Twitter they didn't pull any punches about how they speak. So if you're looking at this with kids present, then just be aware of that. There's no audio in the videos, though, so it's not like you have to listen to someone swear. However, they are cool. The videos show off the ability for Minecraft with this SUSE Renewed shader pack to bounce light around. So essentially before, SUSE only had 2 bounces. So the light would come in, and it would hit the floor, and then it would light the room based on the reflectability of the floor, right? Mm-hmm. So you'd get kind of like a grayish room or whatever, depending on what you had going on. Now, as light works in real life, it bounces around multiple times. And so what happens is if you have a sunbeam coming in a window and it hits like an orange floor, an orange carpet, then that room is going to have a slightly orange tint to it because that light's going to be reflected a little bit. Not so much because the carpet's not super reflective, but if you have shinier objects, then the light will bounce around more, and it does wonders for shadowy builds. In a lot of things with Minecraft, especially shaders, things get real dark real fast. And anything at night just looks orange because everything is lit by torches or glowstone or fire or whatever. And with this, it's really, really cool in that when you're walking down like a stone hallway from like a castle, the light is bouncing around and giving you soft shadows. It's giving you bounce light. It's giving you highlights and it's giving you color temperature. It's also doing things like putting a green light beam through a green pane of glass. It looks phenomenal. I can't say that I would really want to play that way. It doesn't always look like Minecraft, but it's a really neat way to, I guess, have like a renderer in game. Like if you wanted to show off a build, if you combine this with replay mod and use this shader pack, and you are going to have some very cool looking stuff.
Yeah, like looking at the videos here, it's pretty fascinating. I think I scrolled past this earlier in the week, so some of it looks pretty familiar to me. And I've been talking about wanting colored light in Minecraft for a while, but even just like the color temperature you're talking about, even like having a sea lantern give off like a slightly kind of more tungsten light than your average glowstone lamp or torch, right? That's kind of a big deal and maybe difficult to implement in the game because all light kind of has to look relatively even, and it probably takes up a little bit more processing power. Goodness knows these shaders must, reduce the average person's FPS to jelly. Yeah, but I think from what I understand, like from the Twitter thread, this is a developer build of Sonic Ethers, which is not currently available on the website. It's only available to people who pledge to Sonic Ether on Patreon. It seems like it's a kind of pre-release thing, that Patreon exclusive. So bear that in mind if you're taking a look at this. But still, it does look glorious to see stuff lit up in color. And while you're right in saying that I wouldn't necessarily want to play with this the whole time, because all the reflective surfaces and stuff might get a little bit annoying. Like if I want my floor to be that like shiny all of the time, then you better give me like mod in some floor polish as well. Because I don't always want like stone slabs to light up like a Christmas tree every time I put glowstone nearby. But it's very cool just seeing that can be accomplished and change the aesthetic of Minecraft that way.
Yeah, and it's unclear what materials are being used, because once you turn on the shaders, and people that are showing off the stuff in the video don't necessarily have a vanilla texture pack, so you're just like, oh, I don't know what's what. But if you're using the vanilla textures, and it stands to reason that if you're using something like polished andesite, it might be shinier than, say, cobblestone, right?
Yeah.
I also don't know how much of the development for the Seuss Renewed is being reflective on purpose to then test reflective properties, right? Like
it's going to be dialed back later potentially.
Yeah. So everything is currently under obviously testing scrutiny, but man, it's just a super super cool thing to see. I find, as someone that understands how light works as an artist, a lot of shader packs are kind of crap. I like the ones that kind of augment the vanilla gameplay look, but don't kind of go too far past it, because it tends to then just look orange, and it's not at all what I want. And I think that this looks like it's a cool balance. And something to point out that, and why I feel like it's unfortunate that they put ray tracing in the title of the article, is that ray tracing usually involves needing a graphics card that is capable of doing it. Where path tracing just requires a decent video card and the resources. It does not mean a specific video card. So path tracing, in the way that Sonic Ether is going about this, is more accessible to people eventually when it's all released for 1.13, and when all the mods and all the shaders and plugins and stuff are capable of catching up to the versions. More than likely immediately after that we'll have 1.14, but for now it's a really cool proof of concept, and it's fun to see this kind of development happening around Minecraft.
Let's roll the discussion back to the snapshot, though, because I feel like we covered the bullet points of that, and then we went straight into like, oh, aren't shaders pretty? So
we don't talk about shaders that much, so it's kind of fun.
It's true.
Yeah.
So I have not really had a chance to check out this week's snapshots because I've been pretty busy over the weekend. You've got a lot more notes in here than I have, so how about
Yeah.
you throw some stuff out here?
Well, we can skip over the bug fix stuff because I think it's all pretty self-explanatory. Without outside of me being, weirded out by how they word bug fixes, I really wish they would, make that a little bit clearer. I think the two things worth noting are villager trading UI, the bad omen and hero of the village, and villager breeding. So let's start with the villager trading UI. To me, it's an improvement. I'm not saying it's necessarily the prettiest thing in the world, but it's way less cumbersome than the previous version. The fact that you can scroll a vertical list, see all the trades that a villager is going to give you, including whether or not you have discounts on certain trades, and then just click on them to trade with them, makes way more sense.
So the vertical list UI I've been seeing is a Java thing then, because to me it looked almost like a Bedrock interface. I've seen Bedrock using similar stuff like that, and so I thought maybe that's just one that's come to the Bedrock beta lately. But that's in Java as well.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
So you can scroll. You can use the mouse wheel to scroll up and down as well.
Right.
Just the only thing that I kind of wish is that even though more trades are better, I almost wish that the trading window would be large enough that you wouldn't have to scroll. Like it would be nice to just be able to see the 6 or 8 trades that a villager gives you. But I think the problem is that they've added trades or they've given the icons are the same size as the icons in your inventory. So then that of course limited the amount of stuff that they can see. Because when you open up your inventory, it's only like 3 inventory slots high, 4 plus your hotbar. So then if the villager has 8 trades, then you've got to scroll through 4 at a time, that sort of stuff. I can't remember exactly. It's 4 to 6 or something like that. It's not a long scroll, but you do have to eventually scroll. So the only improvement there in terms of the UI, I would think, would be to just not have to scroll, just to be able to see them unlock as you unlock them. I don't recall if it tells you whether it has a tier or not, whether it tells you like what tier that villager is at. But I guess
if they're like a journeyman or an apprentice or a master or whatever.
I guess the number of trades available to you would be that indicator, as well as the little diamond thing that they have on their sash on the outside of the villager skin. But other than that, it looks cool. With regards to the bad omen and the hero of the village, I'm sort of catching on to where I think Mojang is going with this. So the bad omen is something that you get from killing pillager leaders. So the guys that have the banner attached to their back.
Yeah, they've got the big illager kind of face banner on
them. Yeah. So and that affects the toughness of the raid. So if you've killed 1, then you have a bad omen 1 and the raid level is level 1. But if you have more, then the raid level gets harder and it goes up in different kind of tiers. And so I think 1 through 7. So 1 through 4 is one level, and then 5, 6 is another, and then 7, 8 is like the highest tier. And that 7, 8 is when you're going to get like 2 villager beasts and all kinds of different stuff happening.
Sure. For folks who haven't caught up with raiding is when you walk into a village with this bad omen effect, it essentially triggers a sort of wave survival minigame where a bunch of monsters will spawn around the fringes of the village, attack the villagers, generally cause chaos.
I actually don't know how raids happen without the bad omen. I don't think they do.
No, I think it is just if you walk into a village with the bad omen thing. So there are still roaming bands of pillagers in the overworld, from what I understand. So they'll still spawn. They just won't have a ton of backup.
Right, and they'll spawn around the pillager outposts.
Yeah, the outpost kind of watchtower structures that you find. Yeah.
So the thing there is that it gives you some incentive, because if you successfully defeat a raid of any level, then you get what's called the Hero of the Village buff, and that gives you discounts on trades. And the harder the raid that you defeated, the bigger the Hero of the Village buff you get, which means you get a better discount. So it kind of incentivizes players to say you find a trade that you want. Let's use a mending book as an example. And now there's an incentive to find some pillagers, kill some raid leaders, get a higher bad omen, start a raid, beat the raid, and receive the Hero of the Village buff for about 2 in-game Minecraft days. So if you have enough stuff saved up in terms of emeralds and whatnot, you could have a very low trade on a mending book, because in addition to what it costs in the original trade, you're going to get a discount on top of that with the Hero of the Village buff.
And then all you have to hope is make sure that the librarian that you were going to be trading mending from hasn't been killed in the raid.
Well, and this is the thing. So one of the other notes that they mentioned is that what are the ones that have the axes that chop down? Those aren't evokers.
Vindicators.
Those are vindicators. So vindicators, all pillagers can open doors. So FYI, and all and the vindicators will actually choose to chop them down should they want to. So not only will they open them, but they'll remove the door.
Doubling down on the Jack Nicholson in The Shining reference.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So I've got some ideas about how you might be able to include some redstone things in your village protection system to that when the raid starts, and once you've noticed that all of your villagers are in their houses, you hit a button and, maybe activate some pistons or something that, behind the doors just close off the doors.
Yeah,
so
it just kind of locks them in. It's the iris from Stargate at that point.
Yeah.
It's like close up all the defenses.
Yeah. Alternatively, if you did have a wall around that village, then you know where the pillagers are going to be. They're going to be outside the wall because they have to come from somewhere, right? Mm-hmm. So at that point, you could potentially, have a safe way to increase to a very high bad omen, start a rough raid, and then just have to put in the time to, destroy the raid. A fun multiplayer experience, I think, if you can get 2 or 3 of your friends together and be just like, okay, you watch the front gate, I'll watch the back gate, you make sure all the villagers are safe, etc. And I think I can see where they're going with it. Like, I understand there's a lot more interactivity and a lot more play happening around the raids, the villages, and the rewards that you get for them.
There's a note in the changelog that says specifically each person that brings bad omen into the village still increases the bad omen level. So it's not even you have to kill 5 pillager captains and only you get the raid. It's basically anybody who's killed 1 pillager captain, it all kind of has a cumulative effect when you walk into the same village, which is pretty cool. I do like that as a concept. And like you say, adds that multiplayer kind of functionality to it. You can almost turn it into a kind of tower defense game if you want to, as long as you've got the means to, station people here and there and maybe put some traps in and that kind of stuff. That's what I'm looking forward to in a way, is seeing if village defense can be kind of automated in a way, and have them walk over magma blocks and stuff like that to see how far they get before they fall down. It's something Python and I were going to do with the blood moon that happens on our Harmony mod pack. But yeah, for whatever reason, we never got around to doing that. But I like the idea of turning it into a bit of a tower defense, wave survival kind of game.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you were talking about a dispenser shooting arrows at a bell. What if there's a number of dispensers just shooting arrows out into the field?
Trick wires everywhere.
Where they come from, right? I mean, like there's some really fun potential there, provided that you still get the credit for the kill. Right? Because if you defeat the raid, as long as you participate and at least kill 1 pillager by hand, I would imagine that would count. But if all of the pillagers die in a magma trap or, a dispenser firing arrows, then hopefully you still get credit for it. Like it's unclear at this point. Some testing I think would be involved.
See if that counts towards your. Maybe it's just if a raid gets completed, if like the boss bar on the raid depletes enough, then everybody within a certain radius gets the effect. We'll see.
Right.
One question I have now that raids have been fully implemented, are zombie sieges in villages still a thing? Because that's something that happens in default vanilla right now. If you have enough villagers together in one area, there is a chance during the night that a set of zombies will spawn during the night in the center of the village and can potentially roam around, converting the villagers into zombies. So even if you fenced it off and lit it up from the outside, you still have the potential for zombies to appear in the middle of the village and cause chaos. In addition to the raids and stuff, that puts villagers in a lot of jeopardy, especially now that you can't trap them in cells and still trade with them. You kind of need to have a few more things around them for them to be happy and tradable with. So I'm interested to see if they've completely, gotten rid of zombie sieges, or if that's just an additional thing on top of all of the other encouragement they've got to incentivize players to work with villagers more.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's up in the air right now. I think that one of the things that would be helpful with the zombie mob raids would be that villagers now with their AI are more likely to seek a door out and seek a bed at night, regardless of whether there's a raid or a bell has been rung. Like that's something that they're just supposed to do, which might if you're not playing on hard, then zombies can't break down doors, so that could be helpful.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not really sure. I didn't in any of the videos that I watched and stuff that I've read, I didn't see anyone mention the zombie thing. So I don't know if it's still a thing. Maybe
We'll see, I suppose.
Maybe this is a replacement for it. So I mean, it would make sense if it's still a thing. Like, well, just leave it in the game. If it's just a random chance, then that would make sense to leave it. Though I do see that, and something that Mo Yang mentioned at Minecon earlier this year is that one of the reasons why they don't implement things like tornadoes in the game is because it would just really suck if you built something and a tornado randomly generated by the game just comes along and destroys it. And that's why they wanted to make raids something that you have to activate. So they're not
it's like
necessarily
a player triggered thing.
Yeah. So maybe one of the things that they want to go do away with is like, it would really suck if you put all this time into protecting your village and putting a wall around it, and then randomly zombies spawn and come in and kill the villagers that you worked so hard to protect. That would suck. So they may not have it in there. I don't know. We'll have to look into that. And anybody listening, if you know, drop us a line at thespawnchunks@gmail.com and let us know. The last thing I want to touch on the snapshots is villager breeding. It appears to be back in the game. And while the mechanics have changed dramatically and they are pretty straightforward, they're not small. The single cell villager breeder looks like it might be a thing of the past. I was watching a video by Zaphod. It's Zaphod. And they did a pretty good job of explaining the new mechanics. And essentially, you just need beds. So if you have two villagers and they're willing to breed via trading or food, they will make a baby villager if there is another bed. So the two villagers that are breeding need a bed, and the baby villager that does not exist yet also needs a bed. So 2 beds, no village, or no breeding, 3 beds, and you get a baby. The tricky part
makes
is
sense.
that
Makes sense so far.
It does, and it's a lot simpler than all the have to detect doors and have them 6 blocks above or below, and doors need skylight and all this kind of stuff. It's now a lot simpler. Those beds just have to be nearby. They don't have to be in any particular orientation or position. The video shows off just like, look, all you need is beds and it happens. The tricky part is that if you want to have this villager breeder thing be a constant thing, if you want more villagers and you want to have to do it manually, then villagers are going to breed up to approximately 5 times during a Minecraft day. And so for every villager that's born, it is assigned a bed, which means that when you have 3 villagers and 3 beds, you're going to need yet more beds for more than 1 villager to be born in a day. So having 5 times the number of beds that you have villagers is a safe way to indicate, okay, well, I've got 2 villagers. At most, they're going to breed 5 times. So if I have 7 beds, maybe even 10 beds to be safe, then I'm going to get my max 5 baby villagers that day. Mm-hmm. But what then? Because now all those beds are assigned to those 7 villagers. And it turns out that villagers check a sphere with a radius of 47 blocks for beds. So you have to move these baby villagers far enough away that they forget the beds. So not only do you have to move them 47 blocks away from the beds that they just received, but then they have to also have to be 142 blocks away to forget the beds to free it up for a new villager. So
so that's a really long water stream, basically.
Yeah, so you've got
or like you build it at basically build height, and then you drop the new villagers to surface level.
Yeah,
and that's where you collect your villagers.
Yeah, so it's really long and complicated, and it does save you from having to destroy the beds manually. But at the same time, when watching this, I don't know, once you've bred up enough villagers to work with, if you really need to have an infinite villager breeder, because you can change villager professions by just putting the blocks near them.
Yeah.
So you don't have to go through 100 villagers to try to find the best librarian you can find. You just, if you get 10 villagers, and you can just turn them into 10 librarians with the blocks and go from there, right?
Yeah.
That's my understanding of it.
I think the main reason to even have an infinite villager breeder in the first place is to have an iron farm. And at that point, it becomes about where you put the iron farm. If you move if your villager breeder is over 140 whatever blocks away from the site of your iron farm, then that's easy enough, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I've not seen the need to have that many villagers to keep my infinite villager breeder going in my current survival world. In the grand scheme of things, people may want to breed villagers for other things, especially if you want to start a village somewhere that you can have raids be convenient. If you like, there are a bunch of reasons to have villagers, but I think that 140 block radius seems like a big deal, but isn't necessarily as huge of a problem as it might at first seem. I'm looking forward to seeing what the community does with this in general, though, and seeing, like, there are new mechanics, there are going to be new designs coming out, people are going to come up with refinements to all of this stuff. And I haven't seen anybody on my timeline lately panicking about villager breeding not being the same. Yeah. I think everyone's happy adapting to it. And beds versus doors, like, it's roughly the same amount of materials. You might have trouble getting wool in the early game, but aside from that, you're pretty much golden. Not to mention that wool can be automatically harvested now as well, so you don't need to worry too much about that.
If you just need like a half dozen villagers, like, I mean, you're fine. This is not a big, you don't need to have the water streams and worry about the 142 blocks. Like, you can just have the villagers breed and then take your axe, destroy the beds, and then put the beds back down again, and you're fine. I think once you've moved the villagers, but like, again, like, it's not a huge deal there. I think the only question of the size of it comes into with needing a lot of villagers. I think too that with Zaphod's video, that it was just really well explained. We'll have a link to it in the show notes. And he just went for a straightforward illustrative build of, like, this is something that illustrates the mechanics. It might not be necessarily the most efficient way to do it, but it very clearly illustrates to the viewer, like, wow, okay, this is how this works now. It's a lot different than it used to be. But I wanted to give him a shout out because I thought it was a very well put together video.
There you go. Link to that will be in the show notes.
Sounds good. And we can actually move on to some chunk mail now. Has nothing to do with the snapshot, as a matter of fact. But we had this come in from Tyrant. Hey, Spawn Chunks. I play Minecraft almost exclusively on mobile. I recently bought myself a new laptop, and I'm considering getting Minecraft for it. I've only really played on Bedrock before, but I really want to get Java Edition. Should I get the Java Edition just because that's what most people play, or Windows 10 Edition just because all of my worlds are already there? I am not the most knowledgeable about this because I don't have access to Bedrock to even test out on it. But it is my understanding that most Minecraft players play on Bedrock just by pure population.
Yeah. Like, Java Edition players tend to be a little bit more vocal, a little bit more kind of out there. Because that's what a lot of folks on YouTube tend to play. But I'm pretty sure Bedrock, even the mobile edition alone, when it was Minecraft Pocket Edition, outperformed the Java version. Like, it became the most popular version, I think, even before it was combined into Bedrock Edition with Xbox One and Switch and everything. Yeah.
If you're talking about people that play on a computer with a mouse and a keyboard, I would bet most probably played Java. Mm-hmm. That's just potentially anecdotal from the number of people that I watch on YouTube and stuff like that. But I would say a lot of the computer players are more than likely playing on Java. Potentially people that have a Windows PC might have both versions because, they want to, play with their kids when the kids are on Xbox, but then also potentially just have their own Java world because they've been playing for a long time and that's the way that it existed back then. I think that's another thing too worth noting is that people that have been playing this game for a long time probably play in Java.
Because it's historically it was the oldest version of the game, and it's exactly been growing ever since. Yeah. I think arguably Java Edition has the better community documentation. When I'm reading the wiki, maybe it's just my bias because I'm a Java player, but I kind of automatically assume that everything the wiki says applies to Java unless it tags it Bedrock Edition only. They've
Yeah.
gotten better at doing that and making sure that people know when something is Java Edition only. But a lot of the tutorials that you'll find on the wiki about like iron and gold farming and stuff all applies to the Java Edition. And the Bedrock Edition mechanics need better documentation. And that's something I would love to see on YouTube, really, is a prominent community of Bedrock players coming through a little bit more, exposing the mechanics of Bedrock a little more clearly, balancing out the Java player base that has stuff on YouTube, especially now that the Windows 10 edition seems to be a little bit more accessible to people. There are some servers out there, like Truly Bedrock is a YouTube SMP that my friend LoyXP plays on, along with a couple of other folks, and that's a step in the right direction. It's not quite like Hermitcraft on Bedrock kind of level, but they are great content creators. They make incredible stuff, and they know the mechanics fairly well and can explain them fairly well, and they get up to all sorts of fun. So I would love to see more stuff like that. Servers like Truly Bedrock are kind of a step in the right direction. One thing I wanted to touch on is that there is a trial version of Java Edition available from Minecraft.net. It's not on the front page, but if you click on the menu little hamburger icon in the top right and open that, you'll see a trial and download option there. That's not just like buy the game. There's actually a link to a trial version you can download. So if you want to try out Java Edition, and this is to anybody at home who wants to try out Java Edition, you can. You don't have to buy it in order to have that experience. So if you want to play it for a day or two and then think, oh, well, this is, not quite as revolutionary as I expected it to be, I may as well just go back to Bedrock because that's what I know, then go for it. There's absolutely no harm in that. And there is equally no harm in dual wielding and having both versions, because the people who bought Java Edition got the Windows 10 edition for free for a while, back when it was in beta, and they just wanted more people playing it. So a lot of people will have both versions, even if they don't actively play both versions all the time.
I kind of wish that Mojang would just put Minecraft under one purchase price. And you have, the ability to download Java, Windows 10, like Bedrock, whatever you want. As long as you've paid for, as long as your email address is associated with an active Minecraft, account, and that they see that you've paid for it, then you should just be able to play whichever version that you want without having to purchase a separate version. Worth noting that, Windows 10 Bedrock is going to be a lot easier to play cross-platform with friends and stuff like that. Java Edition only plays with Java Edition. We've had that happen with one of the people we wanted to play on the Citadel, and they ended up buying the wrong version.
Yeah,
well, not the wrong version. They bought the wrong version for us for the server, and they couldn't access the Java server because they did not buy the Java version of the game.
Yeah, and I think ultimately it comes down to what version your friends are playing. It's the same with the PS4 not having crossplay right now. It's the Sony marketing strategy of, if you want to play with your friends who have a PS4, you better buy a PS4 yourself. Mm-hmm. So, if your friends are on Java Edition, then you'll want to get Java Edition. If you're just playing solo, it really kind of varies. It depends. If you want to emulate the gameplay that you've seen from Java Edition YouTubers, then chances are some of those mechanics they're using won't work on Bedrock. And if you want to follow tutorials and stuff like that, you'll probably be looking at Java Edition tutorials until that Bedrock Edition player base kind of comes through a little bit more prominently. Bedrock also has the advantage of crossplay, and connecting to friends' worlds is way easier in my experience. Like when I play Cobble Clicker with Zloy for our series, I just log in, he's on my friends list, I click on his name, I'm in his world. We don't have to host a server, it gets hosted directly from his machine, in much the same way that Xbox Live lets you party up. It works through Xbox on Windows 10. Right. So it's a lot easier to do stuff like that, whereas to play multiplayer on Java Edition, you either have to be on a local area network, have a hosted server by a third-party hosting company or Mojang's Realms hosting service, or you have to know how to host a server from your machine using Java, which is something people do, but it's not the most straightforward process to somebody who's new to this whole thing. Yeah. So potentially, if you're after connectivity with other people and they've got the Bedrock Edition, then go with that.
Yeah, and if you want to get into resource packs, data packs, modding, and custom models like I have, then Java would be the way to go.
Yeah, although Bedrock is sneaking up in that department as well with stuff like add-ons, behavior packs, that kind of thing.
Cool.
there are sort of there's a variety of stuff out there. I'm sure we have absolutely confused Tyrant here instead of actually giving a definitive answer, but that's the way this thing works, really. Like there isn't a
Yeah.
definitive answer. You can,
Well, and that's the thing. It's like writing in and asking, what should I build in Minecraft? It's like whatever you want,
yes,
And
absolutely.
ultimately, I think you just have to weigh how you want to play Minecraft and what your goals are, and then buy the version that appeals to you now and what your
Yeah.
goals are now. That would be kind of like where the advice that I would give, or like what Johnny said, save up and buy both.
Yes. Yeah, they're always going to be there at this point. I'm pretty sure the Java devs don't ever plan to quit, neither do the Bedrock devs. So the other option is always going to be available to you. And it's possible through Java to play legacy versions. So if you feel like you missed out on Minecraft 1.13 exclusively, then you can go back and play that through the launcher. It's not a big deal. Anyway, moving on to probably what's going to be a relatively brief discussion, but an intense discussion about our main topic for this week. I wanted to talk about food because it was one of the options that I gave the folks in our Discord to chat about on the Roundtable episode, and I wanted to revisit it because I realized I cared about it quite a great deal. So aside from the advancement that requires you to eat everything, which is, I think it's called a balanced diet, where there are 36 different things you can eat in Minecraft, and you have to eat all of them even if they're not good for you, so eat a pufferfish. There doesn't seem to be much reason to use most of them on a regular basis. Like, nobody crafts rabbit stew to eat it. Nobody farms beetroots to make beetroot soup. I want to think about how players can be incentivized to eat more food, or if they should, because I'm pretty sure we tend to we default to stuff like steak because it gives you high saturation. It refills a decent amount of your hunger bar. You don't have to eat again for a little while. Or you default to chicken because it automatically cooks if you build a chicken cooker. There are a few different default foods that are just the better ones to have. Golden carrots are another example because they have the highest saturation. I think rabbit stew is close to it, but it has like 7 ingredients you need to combine.
Right.
So how do you think we could make that better? How do you think we could either incentivize players to use more food or streamline the food experience so it doesn't feel like so much of it is going to waste?
So I think the key there is the convenience to the player. The reason why cooked chicken is probably the most popular, maybe cooked beef as well, because they're the easiest to set up for automation, right? Chickens being the ones that you don't even have to breed at all. Like, you have to breed up cows to make a cow cooker work. But if you're having automatic chicken happen, because chicken lay eggs, dispensers shoot eggs, they turn into chickens, then you can cook those chickens and just have a continuous cycle. Once you have enough chickens to kind of get it going, it just kind of feeds itself. It's one of the very first things that we built on the Citadel when we first started. And I think
it's something I built in episode 104 of the Minecraft Survival Guide.
Yeah. So I think the issue is to make it more convenient for players to have access to that kind of automation. So currently you can't automatically plant any crops. If you could, then you could make an automatic bread farm, right? It would take longer than the chicken farm, but you could still eat bread and have it renewed constantly, right? You would have to have some. You'd have to have some things, like you'd have to make sure that the seeds are getting filled up. You'd have to make sure that the bone meal is getting filled up. If you're using bone meal, maybe you're not. But there are some things that would bottleneck it a little bit, but it would be something technically that you could automate, at least partially in the background. I think also in terms of the cooking, the idea of taking pumpkins and making pumpkin pie, or making cookies, none of these things really seem to have much of a benefit. If you had something that was going to have the equivalent of the saturation of chicken and steak, then it would be more enticing for the player to make. All of it has to be crafted by hand, though. Yeah. So there is that. But I mean, that's the thing. Like, so if you had something that was a better saturation than steak and a better saturation than chicken, while it was handcrafted, it was something that you could easily harvest. Like, say, I'm using pumpkins just because I know that you can do auto pumpkin farms, right? So I feel like at that point, you might have some incentive for people. the thing that comes to mind for me for food is more aesthetic stuff. I want more crops. I want variations in automation, not automation, but I want more variety of crops for the aesthetic of planting a big farm field of stuff. There's not enough in the game, I don't think.
Sure, like having a cornfield instead of a wheat field, and
Yeah.
having like purple amaranth style stuff growing instead of yellow wheat everywhere, or golden
Exactly.
wheat as it is in the new
Yeah,
texture
the new
pack.
texture pack. Yeah, exactly. And I think that's something that's missing a little bit from the game. How would you improve food?
So I have a couple of distinct ideas for this. I would love to see more potion effects, like say absorption, added to the regular foods, and it's something that I get now from playing Breath of the Wild, the new Zelda game on Switch. Is if you cook up some stuff, then there's a chance for it to give you more like hearts for your health meter. There are, things that give you cold resistance so that you can run around in the colder areas of the world for longer. Instead of having to switch out armor and clothes and that kind of thing, you kind of cook effects into it. And it's something they're adding in now in 1.14 with Suspicious Stew. And that's adding more options for potion effects to be part of the food, but the effects are so brief that it barely makes a difference. Like, I see Suspicious Stew exclusively as something that people will use to prank other server members with, like, negative potion effects like Poison or Wither, because there's really no need to have 5 seconds of night vision or 5 seconds of water breathing. I mean, it might save your life in the right conditions, but how often are you going to load up on Suspicious Stew just in case? Right?
Yeah.
So
And
it's
do they
basically
stack?
just there. They don't know. It's like any other, like mushroom stew, rabbit stew.
Yeah.
All of that is single items in your inventory, like water buckets.
And that to me is just wasteful as far as a new item that does something new to the game. Like, it's just a waste of resources and time. Like that, because like when you look at it realistically, you think about the reason why people use cooked chicken, because they can automatically cook it and have stacks upon stacks of it at their whim. I will never bother with Suspicious Stew. Like, why would I?
Yeah, exactly. And it's I think it improves like the shenanigans and roleplay and stuff on servers where people are just, in there to have fun and prank each other and that kind of stuff. You might see it pop up in a few people's videos, but to the average player, I don't see it being all that great. Likewise, stuff like rabbit stew, as an example, I would love it if that gave you more hearts, if it gave you a bit of absorption for a few minutes, if it gave you a minute of resistance so that you feel kind of like all warm and fuzzy inside. Why should golden apples have all the fun? Because golden apples are basically the only other food item that gives you any kind of like bonus potion effects. So I think adding stuff like that would help. And people have mentioned on this show in the past, like the Stardew Valley thing of like certain dishes that you cook giving you a couple of boosts to your stats here and there. And that stuff is quite useful. We've talked in the past about adding, say, coffee to the game and being able to brew coffee using maybe cocoa beans or something, and that being like a speed potion after a fashion.
Right.
Speed potions themselves aren't that inaccessible that I think it would really be necessary, but that's mixing in the RP side of things, and it'd be a bit of fun. I think
stacking food though that have buffs like that would be, in a way, a little bit more accessible. So, like, for example, you can't stack potions. They last for 4 to 8 minutes depending on how you've brewed them.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking about a speed potion or a swiftness potion specifically. But what if, instead of, let's not say 5 seconds, what if something gave you a 20-second, speed boost? If I was going someplace where I wanted to be running around a lot, like maybe I'm harvesting sand or I'm trying to go a certain distance or whatever, I would much rather make the choice to have the right speed potion for the task. So if I'm doing a single run back and forth, speed potion, probably the better option. If I'm going out and harvesting stuff or I'm exploring and I want to be moving quickly, having a stack of, say, a specific food, we'll say cookies, give you a sugar high and makes you run real fast. Having a stack of cookies that each cookie I eat gives me a 20-second boost, or a 15-second boost, would be pretty cool, because I could continuously eat the cookies. I could bring a lot of them with me. And then when I don't need the effect, I could just stop eating the cookies. And when I need it, I could start eating the cookies again. I like that idea. I think that's really, really smart.
Not to mention the fact that, say, something that's got a higher, hunger value will give you a little bit extra of that hunger restored, like a steak. You can only eat a few of them at a time before your hunger bar completely fills up and you're no longer able to eat anything. So, like, potentially that could be used to be a gateway to some of that, not to be a gateway, but to be a gatekeeper to kind of prevent players from stacking too many of the more, like, hefty effects on themselves. So, like, if steak gave you strength, you wouldn't want players stacking strength just by, like, chomping on steak all day long, just so they could be, OP enough to kill the Wither in one hit. I feel like it would naturally kind of limit abuse of those kinds of effects.
Oh yeah, not stacking the effect, but just having a stack of steak. Like, and in battle, in combat, your hunger tends to go down pretty quick. So you'd always have the opportunity to eat more steak and regain your strength buff for another 8 seconds. But when you eat that steak would be key, right? Like,
and you'd be vulnerable at that point. The strategy, definitely.
Yeah.
I think you could get around the crafting of some of it by having not necessarily automated crafting, not like an automated crafting table, but by coming up with different crafting solutions for other things. Like right now, you can get mushroom stew infinitely just from a mushroom. So why not apply a similar approach to beetroot stew and rabbit stew and have them made in a cauldron? Because then the cauldron could be your access point for, like, let me walk up to this with a bowl, get a scoop of rabbit stew, walk off, and then, you've got rabbit stew for days if your cauldron is, infinite, or if it just has the 3 levels like it does with water. That's still 3 bowls, and you're using the same amount of ingredients. I think that would be a better way of doing things than having one rabbit stew be crafted out of 5 things in a crafting table and then have to click all of the stuff through again, because you can only craft one at a time because they don't stack. So even the recipe book isn't really making that much faster.
Yeah.
And I don't know why rabbit stew is specifically my sticking point, but it's because nobody talks about it, because it's unnecessary to craft. You really don't need it. And it would be nice to have stuff like that be a little bit more accessible, and it would deepen the gameplay mechanics. If you had like a cauldron of stuff nearby, you could just grab a bowl from it. It would also be a really nice aesthetic thing to have in like an inn or something. Like you walk into a rustic sort of medieval build and they've got a bubbling cauldron of rabbit stew over the fire.
Yeah.
Like that sounds great. I kind of think that stuff would be great. I would also love more items that you can place down in the world like you can with cake. Like having food items that, instead of just having to be a flat sprite in an item frame, I would love if you put an apple down on a table and it's just an apple.
Just
the
an
size
apple.
of a player head or something like that. Even golden apples could be something like that. We just pop it down on a table and it'd look like a little 3D model. And, all you need to do is reskin a player head at that point. It's not super difficult to add in. I think it's just, if you do it for one thing, it's a slippery slope. You have to do it for everything.
For everything, yeah. It becomes a little bit tricky, and because then there's no plates in the game, so now you're putting your 3D steak just right down on the wood table.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, no, I can see the slippery slope, but yeah, I do wish that some of the things that you had in your inventory that makes sense for you to interact with as a player were also, placeable in the world. I kind of feel like, I don't want to say auto crafting, but I want to say for something like that, you'd want to get into potentially a new block. It's the kind of thing like you kind of wish that the smoker did, even though it doesn't make sense to make rabbit stew in a smoker, but it makes sense for a smoker to make something other than just faster cooked chicken. What if smoked chicken was better for you than cooked chicken, right?
Or gave you fire resistance or something.
Yeah. Or what if this imaginary new block that cooks things like an oven, or I'm not sure what else you could call it, but what if it's similar to a furnace that has multiple inputs from hoppers? You could have up to 3 ingredients go into this cooker plus the plus the fuel, the whatever you're using to turn it on, so that you could then combine gold nuggets and carrots to create golden carrots, or something else similar, something that doesn't exist in the game, like these food items that you're talking about. I think there could also be some fun education that might happen there in terms of planting different crops in fields, in terms of planting, irrigation, harvesting. Is that automated? What's the crafting yield? How many things do you need to combine to make this specific kind of food? So if you want to make a certain bread or kind of bread, you need X amount of wheat plus X amount of, other ingredients, eggs, etc. If you want to make a different kind of thing, you have to change those proportions, which might change, the way you think about how much you've planted. Maybe you need a whole other field of wheat if you need to craft something more high tier, right? I think that could open up a lot of stuff. I enjoyed the short time I had with Farmville. Is it Farmville? No. What's it called?
Is it Farming Valley? It's the one that's kind of like a mod version of Stardew Valley, but in Minecraft.
No, not in Minecraft. It's just a straight up. I think it's Farmville.
Farmville was like the mobile game, Facebook game type of thing.
Yeah, no, that's not it at all.
No? Okay.
It is. Yeah, no, it's another farming game that I own that I can't remember right now. Anyway, you go ahead and I'll come back to it.
Yeah. No, I think it's an interesting balance between like making sure that stuff remains relatively simple for new players so that the food mechanics don't become so deep that players are just lost, because then you end up with the same problem. Then you end up with people just crafting whatever's easy and having like steak all of the time because you just cook beef in a furnace. But I think some depth can be added without sacrificing that. And yeah, I like the idea of having slightly more complex stuff down the line for people who want to go into, a little bit more automatic creation of some of those foods. I think ultimately it just needs to have more reward for the player to seek that stuff out, whether it's, they get the time back that they can go and spend doing other stuff because they know that their food is crafting in the background as they do it, or if they get better effects from it, if they get more saturation, if they get all kinds of other like benefits of that. I think that's probably going to be a better system. I don't know. It's sort of all relative, really. And my thoughts about it are very much geared around playing single player PvE survival. Like, I don't know how this would affect PvP or if it would affect people playing in adventure mode.
Right.
Obviously, anyone who's a creative builder just doesn't care. But I kind of wonder what could be done to improve it.
Farm Together is the name of the game that I was thinking of. Super cute, super fun. The tier system of the addiction there is that you need better gear to run your farm, and so different plants have different sell values. So there's a currency there. That's not something that's in Minecraft right now. But I feel like the currency that you're talking about of the buffs to players, the benefits to players of certain foods, could be, it could be really cool. Like, what if certain foods were locked behind the ability to bake bread? Like, you can't make sandwiches unless you can make bread first, right? And sandwiches are better for you than just eating a straight loaf of bread. You can't make cheese in Minecraft. Like, in order to do that, you need to, craft it with, milk and have a certain age process happen.
Put milk in a cauldron and then just leave it there.
Yeah, leave it there out in the sun, next to some zombies, and then you're going to have some nice blue cheese. Like,
zombie cheese, and new to Minecraft 1.15.
But there's some education there, and I really liked the idea of having all of my stuff in Farm Together in nice, neat little packages and nice, neat little rows, and I could see the mini game in Minecraft quite easily if they open things up. I know we have to wrap things up, but have you played anything any packs that had Pam's Harvest Craft in it?
I think I've had a couple of packs with. I'm pretty sure Skyblock, a Sky Factory, has like a version of Pam's Harvest Craft, like a cut down version of it. I think. If not, then it uses a lot of the same ideas with a different mod. Mm-hmm. But being able to make burgers and sandwiches and that kind of stuff is very much a Pam's thing, right?
Yeah, and is that more of an RP thing, or is there any benefit to the player?
I think in some cases there are things that give you buffs. Like, I'm pretty sure, like, if you drink apple juice, it gives you like an extra speed buff or something. It's like you can juice fruits that have different benefits and that kind of thing. And there's a much broader range of stuff you can eat that gives you a wider range of saturation effects. Like, it's not like steak and mutton basically being the same thing, or chicken and roast potatoes, basically, or baked potatoes basically being the same thing. Like, everything is different and nuanced, and there is some stuff that keeps your saturation high and keeps it there for days. if you get like epic bacon or whatever the final kind of version of it is.
Yeah.
That's not a joke, by the way. I'm pretty sure there is an item called epic bacon in Sky
yeah,
Factory.
I like sense of humor and stuff like that in
Yeah.
mods. The reason I bring it up is because one of the other things, this goes away from the eating aspect of your conversation, but in Wells Knight's Nature's Beauty, I remember specifically he was growing cotton, because that's how he was getting string and wool, because he couldn't find a sheep to save his life, because one of the other mods that he had installed had put all these like naturally spawning mobs like bears and deers and birds and stuff. But as a result,
the mob cap for
cows and sheep were like nowhere to be found. So he's like, all right, it's all right.
Yeah.
I'll do this a different way. And I kind of like that idea, because maybe people don't want to, have livestock. Maybe they don't want to keep animals in pens.
Sure.
And so, if you don't want to deal with sheep, you can just grow cotton. Like there's some really cool things that they could do, but I don't know where. I mean, that's the kind of thing where like the farming update in 1.16 or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, if you want a currency like you had in Farm Together, if you want to be able to sell your crops, open up some villager trades and get like a hungry man villager who's just going to buy all of the mushroom soup off of you and things, and then trade that for a nicer amount of emeralds, maybe. Like the higher quality the food, the more emeralds you get back. There are definitely ways that food can be made a little deeper, I think. And it would be great to hear what the community thinks of this, but I think I am going to have to bring the axe down on this episode of the Spawn Chunks, like the vindicator that I am. Thank you so much for listening. You can find out some more information about the show and links to some of the stuff we've talked about today at thespawnchunks.com. The music for the show was composed by me, and the Spawn Chunks is proud to be a listener-supported podcast. We don't read ads on this show. We are thankful to be supported by our lovely group of patrons. And if you get some value out of the show, you might want to consider putting some value back in by visiting patreon.com/thespawnchunks, where you can join our community by pledging at any level, and that'll get you an invite to our patrons-only Discord chat and get us closer to our next goal of having a chunk mail dispenser where we go through our inbox and read a bunch of stuff out on the post show that we don't get to in the regular show. Right now, we are currently at 81 patrons. We have had a load of people joining since last week, and I want to echo what Joel said at the top of the show, and thank you guys all for your support. It really means a lot to us. Special thanks in particular to our content engineers, Pankwa and Yitz, for supporting this episode.
Previously, we met our goal for having a Spawn Chunks member Discord hangout regarding how the show is made and what we're envisioning for the future, and we are looking at doing that this coming Saturday, April 6th. Potentially the time is 8 p.m. in the UK and 3 p.m. Eastern in the US. For me here in Halifax and Dartmouth, that's going to be 4 p.m. But that is tentative right now. We're going to firm that up with the members of our Discord. And that is, we know it's not going to be accessible to everyone live, but it is going to be recorded and available to patrons, Spawn Chunk members on the Patreon page. Sharing the podcast with your friends is the easiest way to support the show. You can find us at the Spawn Chunks on Twitter and Instagram. Personal recommendations are, of course, by far the best way to share the podcast. So if you have friends, family members, and server mates that might be interested, please go ahead and poke them in the arm and say you should listen to the show. We would very much appreciate it. You can email us at thespawnchunks@gmail.com and let us what you think of food in Minecraft. You can find the Spawn Chunks by name on your favorite podcast platform or podcast app. That includes iTunes, Android, Stitcher, and Spotify, and also YouTube now. We have a review that came in last week before, and it is from Llama Blocks. If you're into Minecraft, this podcast should be your go-to, with interviews of big players and insights into technical changes in the latest releases. Everything is brought together with smart analysis and an easygoing demeanor. It's smart, fun, and it'll get you through a 2-hour commute with a smile on your face. Llama Blocks, thank you very much for that. Very, very kind review. I really appreciate it.
Glad to know we're getting you through your commute. That's always the toughest part of the day for some folks, I know.
Absolutely.
So, yes, happy to be your company on those long drives.
And if you're wondering why Llama Blocks is talking about a 2-hour commute, that's because he's probably a sponsor or probably a member, and he's listening to the Render Distance. And that is the extended version of the podcast, and the only place that you can listen to that or get the RSS feed is for that is on the Patreon page, and that is at patreon.com/thespawnchunks.
My name is Jonny, but online I go by Pixel Riffs, and you can find most of what I do at youtube.com/pixelriffs, where I attempt to make sense of this crazy and wonderful game in a series called The Minecraft Survival Guide. I'm also the voice for the unofficial Hermitcraft recap, which you can find through a quick YouTube search. I stream Minecraft 3 days a week at twitch.tv/pixelriffs, and aside from that, I'm at pixelriffs on both Twitter and Instagram. Joel, where can people find you online?
Everything that I am doing online, including my illustration and design portfolio, is at joelduggan.com. If you're interested in hiring me, then just drop me a line through there. Email is by far the best way. It's kind of like my professional to-do list. I do a couple of other podcasts. One of them is the Citadel Cafe, and I talk about sci-fi and geeky entertainment. The other one is Comics Coast to Coast, where I interview comic creators, illustrators, and animators. Hopefully we have a video game developer coming on Comics Coast to Coast in the near future, so that should be kind of cool. And last but not least, I'm going to point you towards Twitch this week, and that's twitch.tv/JoelDuggan. It is a lot of fun. I'm having a great time chatting with folks as I'm building in Minecraft, looking to diversify the games that I'm playing a little bit. So head on over there and let me know what you think.
Thanks for visiting the Spawn Chunks. The world outside is infinite.